Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Joe, and welcome to Sound Healing Basics. Today, we're going to talk about the science of sound. This is the beginning introduction to the sound healing course. For many of you who may or may not know me, I've been doing drum circles and sound healing for a little over a decade now, and I take private sessions. I specialize in ancient metal bowls. And what I'm primarily known for is drumming and hand tying and making leather, what are sometimes called shamanic drums. So let's go ahead and dig deep into why sound works. Now, understanding the science behind sound can feel a little bit boring at times, but the truth is that's where the mystery and the magic is. When this all began many years ago, I was volunteering as a freelance photographer, and then I would do some drumming and things like that for fun at stage 4 cancer retreats. And what really fostered my passion and intrigue into sound healing was using these drums for drum circles and drumming as kind of a fun experience, and having the people that were there having results in their physical and mental health because of the drumming that they were not getting in any other way. So we're going to talk a little bit about the scientific terms behind sound healing, understanding that, why sound works, and then as you choose to go forward, if you do, we are talking about specific, and I will teach you specific modalities. This is the most important video of them all because this is the groundwork and the foundation that you need to know for just about any sound instrument that you're going to use. And as you can see, I have a few behind me, but let's dig right in. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to share the screen. All right, so what we're going to start with right now is understanding that sound is absolutely everything. I love this image that I got. This is actually a mandala that's thousands of years old, and it's called the Om Yantra or the Sri Yantra. It's made in Tibet, and they say, and the meaning of this mandala always has been Om, which is considered the sound of creation. For thousands of years, this is the symbol that has represented Om. And in modern day scientific technology on a tonoscope, which is like those, you've seen those metal plates that actually create shapes with salt and things like that. When you chant Om, it literally makes the sound that the ancient Tibetans understood the Om to be. So this image right here is really showing that sound when we play the drums or the crystal or the metal bowls or any sound instrument, it's creating sacred geometric shapes. It's actually organizing physical matter that is out of order into order. So that's going to bring us here. So sound creates a consistent wave pattern. It creates not only the sacred geometric pattern, but but it has a frequency, meaning that it has so many waves per second, whereas noise is creating a fragmented pattern. Now, a really simple way to understand this is up until modern day, we have been inundated with only organic sound, and that matters when we come to the conversation of what's called Fibonacci. But we have been inundated with sound that's organized sound waves that are in a pattern that supports the health of our body, mentally, emotionally, and physically. In modern day, as we are now less attached to nature or less exposed to natural organic nature with our food, with our environments, we are being inundated with noise. Now, right now, as you're watching this video, you might sense an air conditioner in the background, or maybe there's traffic, or maybe there's the slight hum of your computer as you're witnessing this, aside from also the sounds that our ears can't hear. So human beings, our physical body, our brain is actually hearing all of these conflicting noises that are non-organic noises. And by the law of resonance, meaning that the highest resonance, the physical matter, takes the shape of the most resonant pattern, our body, our mind, and our psyche is continually getting in a conflicting, or if you see this image, the noise, it's in the noise. And that's creating conflicting patterns in our psyche and in our physical body. So we're going to go ahead and look at this. So sounds are way beyond what the human ear can hear. And this image I'm pulling from nasa.gov. This right here is we have this auditory field of 20 to 20,000 hertz, which is what we can hear. Now the brain and the body, the physical matter, is actually hearing and receiving the resonance and the vibration from all sounds, but you can look at other animals that can hear lower. And then we all know dogs and cats hear more, and then the bats and the dolphins can go really, really, really high. Now the brain can hear the brain can sense and be aware of many different things that the human ears are not hearing. So it matters when you're experiencing this, because it's damaging, or not damaging, but it's definitely affecting what you're hearing. So let's see if we can get back to where we were. Of course. Let's go here. And then right here. Okay, so now as we're looking at this picture or image here, you can see a low energy wave or a low frequency wave is going to have longer wave patterns, and a high frequency is going to be tighter. You can see that here, and you can see this here. Frequency is the number of complete cycles per second. So a unit in sound is hertz. So it's one wave per second. So if you were going to do a jump rope, as it says here, and you were doing one jump per second, it would be 1 hertz, or 2 jumps per second would be 2 hertz. So that's going to be the terminology that we're understanding as we're moving on. If you look at this image here, what you're going to see is here are sound waves, and some of the and the word sacred geometric or geometric patterns that are being created of balance and organization in the sound waves, you can see are mirror imaged in a lot of architecture. Here you have stuff from ancient Tibet, you have the Mayan calendar right here. But if you look at this very last row, this is your DNA structure. So when you're taking sound waves and you're exposing your body, which is mostly water, and your structural DNA, which is always getting bombarded with resonances of noise that are conflicting patterns, and then you're exposing it to an organized pattern that matches its perfect cycle in DNA, it supports the DNA in healing and supporting itself. So as we're using sound, we're not using any type of magic or energy work. In fact, I've really loved sound, because a lot of people who are kind of suspicious of energy work, it's so wonderful that we can show them that sound is literally science. It is nothing more or less than science. So vibration, here, some terms you'll hear in sound healing are going to be vibration equals movement. Sound is vibration through environment. Resonance or entrainment is a sonic signature of vibration harmonic with other frequencies, shifting our own vibration based on the vibration of the environmental influence. What I want to explain with that is simply, if my body is in all of these conflicting patterns and then I expose it to beneficial sound waves, then it's putting itself into a harmonic frequency. And when the body is harmonically balanced, it has the ability to support its own healing. Just like the way that we cut our hand and the injury heals itself, our body has that capability to regenerate and balance and heal itself, but it needs to be in balance and it needs to be in flow to do that. So when we're using sound, we're literally using low, high tones in a varying arrangement of tones to support the body into being in flow so the body can support itself. I won't go deep into that. We're going to talk a little bit about beat and frequency, how specific beats like drum beats, down beats, musical beats, they actually create experiences in the brain. Basic guidelines for sound are low tones. If you can feel those bass notes or the drums, they're a little bit easier to move through dense matter. You've probably heard bass music coming through a car or through event center, but you very rarely are going to hear those flute sounds or those high frequencies. But the high tones are going to organize the matter into complex geometric patterns, which often can foster some better brain activity as well as some better healing. Usually you don't start with high tones because if there are energetic blocks or if there's physical blocks, say you have sore muscles or things like that, where the muscle's tight and it won't loosen up and you're playing a tuning fork, sometimes the high tones of that can't move through that denseness because they're getting stopped by the physical matter, where a low tone is going to be able to start to move that sound wave through the physical matter. And it's never about loud, by the way. I'm not talking about loud. In fact, loud can be more detrimental, but a low, deep sound wave can often move dense energy. And therefore, you can move in with your higher tones and really support the cells in regenerating and healing themselves. So now we're going to move into some brain waves. So here we're looking at gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta. Now I like to focus a lot on theta. So theta is going to be from 4 to 8 hertz. This is going to be where you're having the REM sleep. This is where you're going to have dreaming, deep meditation. This is also the realm of the subconscious. So when we're using sound waves or drum beats with a slower kind of rhythm that you're working to, it's about 60 beats per minute-ish. And when you kind of leveling that down, the brain shifts into theta, and a lot of times that causes the whole body to relax, and it causes the subconscious, that part of ourselves that we block with the conscious mind that's always calculating and organizing, to come forward to really process what's going on in the body to do healing. So theta is very beneficial. So a lot of times when I'm doing personal sessions, I'm working with slower drum beats. I'm trying to calm the body down, allowing the theta consciousness to come forward so that the brain can then administer to the body, to the person's body. So I'm allowing them to allow their body to do the work it needs to do. One of my favorite books is Power versus Force. If you've ever heard of muscle testing, this is the PhD who is kind of the leader or the creator of that. He is the one who found this. Now, this is a really simple graph, and I don't really know what his numbers are based on, but he's showing the frequency and he's showing the hertz, or he calls it the frequency of this. And he's showing the lowest frequencies are attached to different emotions. So different emotions have lower frequencies. So you can see shame, humiliation, elimination, being miserable is down at 20, whereas joy would be at a frequency of 540, serenity, transfiguration, feeling complete. Now, why I like to include this graph is because a lower frequency, so if your body is resonating at a lower frequency, lower vibration, it's going to create disease in your body. And anything above 200 is going to support your body in regulating its own self and healing, and it's going to be healthier. Now, humans, we always go up and down, up and down. Some days I feel joy, the next day I feel grief. And so we are going up and down. Using and utilizing sound, it supports the body and the psyche to raise its vibration. Right here, the emotion that I love, or the level that I love, is courage. So anything above 200 is going to create wellness. And so you've got to get to a place of courage. So when you're coming to a sound bath or a sound treatment session, or you're administering one, the goal really is to create harmony in the body and to allow the body to begin to raise its frequency higher and higher so that the body itself can start to regenerate the way that it needs to go. Right here, color is way higher frequency than sound. So there are theories that all is light. In fact, I believe all is light. There's scientific proof of that. And so it's all is light, and then it's color, and then it goes into sound waves, and then it goes into densified matter, which would be physical matter. So all of these light frequencies have some crazy, crazy hertz too. And while we're not going to get into this today, something to know is that the colors do carry a frequency and they can support the body. Sometimes people get really stuck in the practice of the chakras, and red is this and blue is this and yellow is this. But what I have seen is a lot of times that can get in the way of sound. And I'm not saying, and what I mean by that is when we try to start saying, okay, well, they've got something going on in their root chakra, so I'm going to use red, and I'm going to use this note, and I'm going to use all of that. A lot of times we're overthinking it. You need to know the science and you need to know the philosophies, but not be attached to them, because in that attachment, often you are missing the opportunity to interact with the frequency and the sound wave that you can inertly sense. Now, according to the Vedic system, the root chakra would be C, the sacral chakra would be D, and you'll see solar plexus E, heart chakra F, throat chakra G, third eye A, crown would be B. So this is what the Vedic system is, which is you're gonna, you'll maybe see and hear a lot of yoga practitioners and teachers talk about this. This is relative, and I want you to know that this is relative, because if you come through the Tibetan system, they attribute different notes in different orders. When I've done my sound healing classes, I will play the C note and I will ask the students, I won't tell them the note, I'll simply say, I'm playing this note now. Everybody go ahead and put your hand where you're feeling the frequency moving through your body. And 100% across the class will have their hand in a different spot. So the sound wave will go where the body needs to go and where the energy is moving. And so if I were to have a denser energy block in my physical or etheric realm or in my emotional auric field, and I'm playing the C note because it's supposed to go to the root chakra, but that is blocked, the sound wave will find the place that it can move in through to begin to, like you throw a rock into the pond, it'll actually toss the rock in and it'll start to work through the entire system. So don't get attached to the order of the notes and think that you have to know this in terms of treatment. But I do feel like you need to know it because in the sound healing world, everyone is expected to know that. And most people are going to go off of the Vedic system versus the Tibetan. That's what we're hearing and seeing all over the place. I will tell you out of true sincerity, I do not see it more relative than the Tibetan. And because I specialize in the Tibetan handmade ancient bowls, I see that the Tibetan works better depending upon the bowls. If I'm using crystal bowls, probably go off of the Vedic because most of those were being created off of the Vedic, but not with the ancient Tibetan. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Fibonacci. Now, remember we talked earlier about organic sound versus non-organic sound. Fibonacci is based off of all organic nature. Our bodies, the universe, plants, everything is based off of a Fibonacci mathematical sequence. This sequence is, if you can follow the little arrow, 1 + 1 combined equals 2. Now we jump. 1 + 2 = 3. 3 + 2 = 5. 5 + 3 = 8. 8 + 5 = 13. On and on and on and on and on. Well, this mathematical sequence was discovered that it is in all organic nature. And you can see the Vesuvian Man or the Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci, and in the human hand. This mathematical sequence is in all organic nature. So organic sound supports organic nature. So by listening to organic and acoustic instruments, things like that are going to be very good for your physical body. Now, does that mean that music isn't good? Of course not. Music is great too, but the sequence of the Fibonacci is built into organic sound. Another term you're going to hear all of the time if you're in sound healing is solfeggio. Solfeggio frequencies refer to specific tones of sound that would help with and promote various aspects of body, mind, and health. So I'm going to jump down here because you can all get this in your email. The scientific community began connecting the dots between the type of music played and the variety of physical effects on the body in 1988. So this is fairly new. Dr. Glenn Rain made a discovery that confirmed what the ancient spiritual traditions understood when he tested the impact of different music on DNA. So the point that I want to make is this is all scientifically based. They have shown that solfeggio frequencies have different results in the body. Here's where we get the solfeggio frequencies. In 1952, a German physicist, Winfried Otto Schumann, mathematically documented the electromagnetic resonances existing between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. The electrically charged part of the Earth's atmosphere. He discovered that these waves, which would be the Earth is pulsing like a heart, it's ranging from 7.86 hertz to 8 hertz. And he determined that this is like the heartbeat. So the Earth is literally pulsing at a 7.8 to 8 hertz. What he did then is he took that hertz, the 8 hertz, and he began to multiply it. The C note is vibrating at 256 hertz. The A note is vibrating at 432 hertz. What he's found is when you're playing tones that are a multiplication of the Schumann resonance, they benefit the body and healing occurs. So many ancient musical instruments were constructed to 432 hertz before the mid 20th century. And then everything started to be tuned to 440 hertz. No one really knows why. Some people have conspiracy theories. It doesn't really matter, that we're not about that on this video. It's just explaining what you need to know about sound healing and the framework for that. 528 hertz has been really focused on because they've seen that DNA is regenerating with that frequency. 396 is really good for subconscious. 639 is really good for balancing emotions. 741 is really good with problem solving and detoxing. 852 is really good with replacing negative thoughts. Now, a lot of people think, oh, let's go straight to the highest. Well, it's been proven that if you're doing a variety and you're moving through all of those, that's the best benefit for your body. If you go onto iTunes, if you go onto the internet, if you go anywhere, you can find albums called Solfeggio Frequencies, and I listen to those a lot when I'm going to sleep. Most of those are instrumental, and you can listen to those and work on your subconscious and help your body heal just through those frequencies. So where I said before, the Fibonacci is about organic sound, acoustic, things like that, the leather drums, those things that are organic nature, those are really helpful for the body. All of that is really amazing. And then you also have the solfeggio based off of the Schumann, where using these tones even on earphones and things like that are very good for the body regardless. Here's some simple graphics you can find on the internet that are simple for you to understand what those frequencies are. Let's talk about binaural beats. This is another way that we move the brain into theta. Remember, we talked about the 4 to 8 hertz for theta. Well, what they found, let me see if I have a picture of it. Let's go just right here. What we found is, so let's say that I had a tuning fork right here, and this was at 432. And then on this side of my brain, I had a tuning fork and it was at 440. If I were to play the tuning fork on this side of my head, and it's playing, I don't think you can hear it, and I were to play the 440, the difference is 7 hertz or 7 or 8 hertz. So by having the different frequencies, it causes the brain to go back and forth, and that's what creates a binaural beat. It puts the brain into theta. So that's really beneficial with some tuning forks and other sound instruments. But a really easy way to do binaural beats too is just to get some earphones, and you can find those on YouTube and things like that. I like to write affirmations and goals, or do visualizations with that in the background because it's programming your subconscious mind. So were you doing a sound bath or were you doing a treatment? When you're putting the brain into theta, you want to be really careful about offering suggestions. So it's a way to offer peaceful, positive affirmations, shifting through changing habits and addictions and things like that. All of this can be done using theta and brainwave and supporting people in getting into those subconscious programming. Why am I creating these issues? Sometimes people have addictions, or why am I going through the same kind of relationships? Well, when you can get into that subconscious or theta brain, a lot of times people will know those answers inherently, they'll know them themselves, but we also need to be very aware that we are not feeding the subconscious anything, or kind of it's really just a matter of ethics, but it's really about programming the brain. And if you've studied Reiki, you also know of what's called the Seihei Ki symbol, that is about the subconscious too. These two things are doing the same thing. So I'll include this article about the binaural beats. There's more conversations about the different brainwaves and the benefits of those. Now we're going to move into the toning, humming, and chanting. So remember Fibonacci. Fibonacci is going to tell us about organic sound. Well, we know that the human voice, your specific human voice to your specific body, is the most beneficial sound healing instrument. So you don't have to go buy anything else for yourself, simply using your own voice. Singing, chanting, and toning releases nitric oxide in the body. It supports brain movement, and everybody, virtually everybody, has access to that. Think about the way that we soothe upset children. We hum, we sing, we tone. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about toning, because there's humming, toning, and singing. Singing would be like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Chanting or toning would be really focusing on the vowel sound and creating where you feel your body moving just the way that you would feel like a drum beat, and you feel that frequency go through. So instead of saying do, like I'm singing, it's not about having a beautiful voice. It is literally about creating a vibration in your body. So I would go do. And I'm feeling the way my body moves. I'm feeling that sound wave flow through, and that it's called a longitudinal wave, moving through the body from head to toe. Now, different vowel sounds are going to do different things in the body because they make different shapes. So if I go O, E, Ah, Oo, they create a different sacred geometric shape. And all of those shapes support the cells in the DNA in organizing their patterns. So one of the simplest things that you can do is simply do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and go from low to high. And you can do this in the car. So we did do, so we go ti. And you can simply move through that. And they've shown that when you go through the scale, that has been the most productive and the most beneficial for the human body in destabilizing the cell membranes of cancer cells, according to the Tomato Academy, where there are photographs in just 10 or 20 minutes of using the vocal tones and toning going through the whole scale to administer to the body, and that the cell membranes start to destabilize. So the sound that you can use always is that. One of my favorite things to do is to hum. Now, when you're humming, you're typically using the consonant sounds, which are M like monkey or N like Nancy. So when you do this, you can move the tongue forward and backward, and you'll feel differences in the brain, the throat, and the chest. So if I were to, and I like to tell people when we do our sound healing or sound practice, is to not just hum, but move the tongue around and see where you can feel the sound wave going through your body. So let's try M like monkey. Let's try N and moving the tongue. You did that with me, should have been able to feel that to move through your brain, maybe the front of the skull and the back of the skull. This is very beneficial for those neural pathways in the brain from left to right to activate and have communication backwards and forward. One of my favorite ways to hum is to drop the tongue, and I'll turn my head to see if you can see this. So I'll go. If you can see that, what happens is the sound wave moves from kind of the nasal cavity down into almost the thymus gland, the thyroid down here. So I can move that sound wave using just my voice through these parts of my body that need to be administered to. How many of you know people that are having thyroid thymus issues at all? How many of you know people who are struggling with depression or struggling with hormonal imbalances and things like that? ADHD, ADD, we've seen huge results with just humming for some of these things that I've mentioned. We've seen huge results for people who have had strokes with just humming, and particularly the sound bowls, where the brain is processing through the tones and the physical movement is literally shaking the brain from the inside out. So give those practices some opportunities, because even people who have experienced maybe some verbal loss or some word loss typically can still move their tongue to create those tones and have some results. That's all up to you. Again, I'm never a medical doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. I am just somebody who has studied sound, who studies and researches and teaches sound, and simply says the results that we've witnessed and the studies that I have seen. So what you see here on this picture here is I like for people to go through the do, re, mi, fa, so, you know, all of that, and then also those different tones, and see if you're sensing on the body. Are you sensing any where in your body that's filling the sound? Because you would think, oh, everything's coming from the throat and the voice, but what happens is, and what we see in our classes, is a lot of times people are chanting and toning and they're feeling that in their feet or in their fingertips. Now, if you've studied breath work, and I'm not an expert on breath work, a lot of times with the breath work, you can start to get the energy moving and people will feel their extremities tingling. Or with sound, you're using the sound waves and the breath together. So let's recap really, really, really quick. Sound shifts physical matter. There is a difference between sound and noise. Low waves can move through heavy energy. High waves can create more intricate patterns. Here you have some examples of sound waves and DNA, as well as architectural and historical and all of these things. Vibration means movement. Sound is vibration through environment. Resonance and entrainment is the way that sound and vibration can affect physical matter, our bodies, our psyches, our aura field. Moving into theta is typically where you can increase and support the most healing for the body, the brain to do it itself. When we're using sound, we're literally just working on moving the flow, the harmony, and the waves to create flow and to raise the vibration of the body so that the body and psyche can repair itself. Sound and color are all frequency and vibration. Here I'd like to point out the Vedic system, which is important to know and memorize and also not to become attached to. Fibonacci is the mathematical sequence of organic everything. So sound and organic energy. Solfeggio are the frequencies you hear of, which are the 528, the 432, the 396, based off of the Schumann resonance, which is the heartbeat of the earth. There's apps you can download about that. And binaural beats are when you move the brain into theta by playing an alternating frequency on either side of the brain or either side of the head to create that 4 to 7 hertz in the brain. Here you can see 200 to 205, it's creating 5 hertz in the brain. Let's go here. Toning, humming, and chanting, the vowel sounds. All of this is something you can start today to create health in your own body and mind. Toning and humming, I don't think I mentioned this, release nitric oxide in the body, which helps boost immune functions and stabilizes emotional chemicals in the brain, the things you've heard of, the serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, melatonin that our body carries, and all of that stimulates when we're using those. Here's a graph that you can download as you're doing the toning and chanting to see where the sound waves are. Something that I do feel like is something valuable for you to be aware of is I absolutely love music. I love music. When you're playing music, and for example, when I'm at my drum circles, knowing what we're doing with sound healing, I really pay attention to the words in the music, knowing that music has the ability to program our mind. So let me give you an example. Take me out to the ball game. If you were watching the video and you know the end of that song, you already did it. Let's see. Let me see. You are my sunshine. Or let's do A, B, C, D. Just from those examples, you can see how your brain went boom, 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 got it, boom, 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 got it, boom, 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 got it. The music we expose ourselves to has the ability to program what are called earworms, which are not literal worms, but they're loops in the psyche, like a merry-go-round. So if you're listening to music with derogatory or negative messaging, be aware it can create those loops in your mind. Now, I'm not saying this in a fear base, because sometimes if you're resisting anger or you really need to feel anger, remember that cone-shaped graph. Sometimes we need to hit anger if we're in that space of apathy. So it's not that listening to that music is wrong, it's that we use this as a tool. Sometimes ever find yourself crying because a sad song comes on, but you realize that you had been ignoring the sadness that was inside of you all the time. Well, emotions that get stuck create dense energy and they stop the flow. So sometimes we do listen to a sad song to start the energy moving and flowing that out. So music with negative, or what we would say anger or sadness or things, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but understanding the way that music and those brain waves affect our psyche and they create these loops, be conscious of the loops that you're processing through, because there's other music out there. There's amazing music out there that you can loop in your brain. And it's like a hack to have positive messages about prosperity and healthy relationships and and perseverance and endurance. And so begin to use these things. Begin to use acoustic sounds, begin to use the binaural beats, begin to use the solfeggio frequencies. Use this in your life because anybody can do it. And at the very least, hum, sing in the shower or the car. So thank you for sticking with me through the sound healing basics, the framework, the science behind all that we do. We move into learning how to use sound bowls to do not just sound baths, but also to do personal treatment for self and for clients. I can teach you how to do drumming for yourself, for clients, but also for drum circles. And then we study things like tuning forks and tingshas. There is so much behind sound. And by getting a few simple tools, you can change everything in your life and you can support not just yourself, but those around you. You'll find me at katiejodrum.com, but you'll also find me at sagecanvas.com because I am here in Utah and I have a studio where I teach all of this in person. And were you to do the online course, you come in person once a month, or we set up a time specific to you and you can actually practice and learn these techniques. Have a beautiful day. Please reach out to me and comment if you have any questions on anything that we taught today. Please just let me know and I'm happy to clarify. Thank you.